Welcome to Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond. I am your host, Christina George, and for the next 2 hours, Rene Chavez and I myself will be bringing you some very interesting tales about the Nevada Sierras. So, Rene, interesting way to start out the show, I guess, huh?
You're no kidding. I wonder what else is going to happen next.
Oh, my gosh, I'm telling you, with my show on Monday and then this show that we do, I never know what to expect because the craziest stuff has been happening recently. So interesting. Monday night I found out we had all kinds of EVPs, and I'll tell you, having so many psychics on the show, boy, I'll tell you, I was getting messages left and right and trying to interview, and it was definitely very interesting to say the least.
Yeah, there was some stuff going on for sure.
Yeah, well, we had all those technical difficulties, and it was just crazy. But I mean, again, it is my show, and it's like I always act like I'm so surprised, but I think about it, and I'm like, why am I really so surprised? Because this stuff happens all the time. But
I know that would be true.
Yeah, we're gonna have a great show tonight. We're gonna have Lord Rick Rowe on tonight as the guest, and he's actually been a really good friend of mine for quite a few years now, and I've had him on the show other times, but we've always been talking about drama and the paranormal, crap like that. But so we're going to bring him on tonight to talk about what's going on up there. We've got UFO sightings, we have Bigfoot reporting, because the Sierras are actually, I think, there and in Washington and Oregon, these are the three good hot spots. We've got paranormal stuff going on there. We've got a lot of ghost towns up there. And interestingly enough, our group, PPRS, is going to actually be going up there for a few days to do some camping and some sky watching and some Bigfoot investigating. So I am so excited.
Me too. I love camping.
Oh, and the thing is, we've been trying to get out to do, a Bigfoot investigation since I think last year. And, I've gone on a few of them, and I've actually had a sighting. And I'll tell you, it is so exciting. I mean, I didn't, it's not like I got to get a picture or anything like that. I hope that this time we will with, bringing some additional equipment. But it always seems like when you're up, you get more in the rural areas of the woods and, the wilderness, that's where you start encountering a lot of this stuff.
True.
And he's been doing this for so long. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, because there's been times when I've been out camping, and, a lot of times you don't really plan on it. When something unusual gets spotted, whether it's a Bigfoot or any other type of creature that's been known to be in the area, or UFOs. And so a lot of times we don't catch the picture or are quite as prepared for something like that. So that's why a lot of times in the past that hardly anybody has really gotten those really good pictures other than what you get, those blurry ones or those fake ones. So, Well, I just got a message from our producers, and it looks like our guest may be online with us. Rick, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. Well,
awesome.
Everybody, Lord Rick Rowe, again, paranormal investigator, ufologist, cryptozoologist. You've done it all, just like me, except the male version, and boy, we really are out there investigating and bringing things, information forward. But you've been doing this for a long time, Rick, right?
Oh, God, yes. I can remember the first days of my investigations, but I was around before the TV shows. I was around before all these groups. And, when I was a kid, I used to listen to live ghost hunts on the radio in Buffalo, New York. And I said, someday, when I get older, I'm going to do this. So in 2001, we opened our doors, but prior to that, I always had, I was did a lot of freelance type of projects where I didn't have no site or nothing. So I've been involved in this a long time, and I think each year as paranormal investigators, we all tend to grow a little bit. You learn as you go, and you grow, and then you teach. And so each year it gets more and more intense. I never know what I'm going to do next. It could be from climbing mountains to going deep down in mines. It's always something different. It's always something new, and there's always new experiences to be shared and talk about.
Absolutely, and I think you hit it right the nail on the head when you say that doing this, it always starts for very personal reasons. And you like myself, were doing this back when it wasn't anything, that anybody wanted to do. You didn't see any groups and things like that. And if you did help somebody, it was usually through word of mouth. Somebody knew somebody that knew somebody that knew us, and that's kind of how it happened. But there's been such an interest in this field, and the thing that always surprises me, and this is a great show to have you on because, you have investigated in all these different fields, as I have. Something that I found is when I originally just started, investigating the paranormal, but really it was, at that time, it was really encompassed the paranormal. Now it's very broken and everybody, is investigating their own thing. So they're either investigating, spirits and ghosts, or they're investigating UFOs and abductions, or they're doing Bigfoot and cryptozoology. But with myself, investigating all of these different fields, first thing I started, realizing was that there are a lot of similarities and a lot of connections between the fields themselves. Now, have you found that yourself?
Yeah, actually, with the UFOs, I think the UFO community is on the same page, but the Bigfoot community is torn up. From what I'm observing, a lot of people are skeptical because of all these hoaxers and the stupid shows, and I know stupid seems a little abrasive, but you got to understand that before these shows, I went around and tried to pitch a show to networks where I would basically control my own show. I find the cases, I find the places, they film it, and the producer had brought it to the network's attention, and the network put a miniseries on. So I ended up missing the, getting on the wagon for that. But when I started doing a couple shows and realizing that they fake evidence, that's just something I would rather not associate myself with, because once you get caught doing that, and once you're doing it on TV, it really ruins the belief in Bigfoot and aliens, especially when people are acting out the paranormal. And what we do is very real. We experience these UFOs or a Sasquatch sighting right in front of our eyes. And that's something every TV network hopes to achieve, but they can't do it with their 1/2 mile radius area that the parks give permission to. And so, we as investigators, we tread where the angels don't dare. And so that's one of the reasons why we have experiences, because we have a freedom that the television networks do not have.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And, it's probably good that you didn't go into it at that time, because, I even believe that in the very beginning, like with, ghost hunters and, the Ghost Lab. I liked Ghost Lab, things like that. These were actual teams, that had been investigating, or the two guys that were the, plumbers, they were real teams that had been doing this, and they're following them around. But the difference, changed is that once they signed those contracts, you have now signed your life away to a network which no longer cares about what you're trying to bring forward and the truth. They're trying to get ratings. Yep. And, you're right. The people that have got out there, they have, come under such ridicule, and now, everybody feels like they're fakers, which, then spawned other television shows like Ghost Adventurers. Did I even say that? I hate saying that word, but, that show. And, we get other people learning, okay, well, we'll go out and provoke, and this is the right way to do it, and they don't understand that so many people, don't have any clue that this stuff is just entertainment. They see it, and that's all it is. Promoted as, reality TV, and people think it's the real deal. And those of us that are out in the field, we know it's all a bunch of BS. Like, who sits in the dark for 12 hours and, you're there for a while, and then all of a sudden everything's demonic, and you even package it up into a little 30-minute, or 45-minute program.
45-minute show.
Just so sad. And we've seen so many investigators that have actually started, watching these shows, get into the paranormal, and then end up being our client because they really don't have a clue what they're doing. They've mimicked what they've seen on TV. So
yeah. Well, I just like I said, I've had a few investigators. I don't work with a lot of people, but we've had a few apply recently, and it's all because I watch those shows. And I was the one who pitched Ghost Hunters to Sci-Fi. They just didn't give me the job. They didn't like the way I looked. They gave those guys the job. And after that, I kind of hated Sci-Fi. I was like, every time if I watch them, I just put money in their pockets. And that's not right.
Yeah.
This field should never be about money. It should be about the truth. That's where the brain is of it all, is getting down to the truth and debunking things. And, you know, I'm afraid those TV shows fell very short of that. I was on a Sci-Fi episode, and they had, was on Hellhounds, and, you know, even though they filmed me for a couple hours, I got like 19 seconds, and I seen them faking things on the show, so I got pretty pissed at the producers, and now Sci-Fi hates my guts, but I was just like, this is not right, because the producers would be punching each other in the ear, and they'd be like, oh, we're tricking the audience. I bet you they won't believe, or I bet you they'll believe in this little stunt we pull, and it's all just special effects. It's smoke and mirrors, and what we do as paranormal investigators is not smoke and mirrors. You know, we get abducted by aliens. That's the real deal. It's these people, you know, they get Subway delivered to them and pizzas and everything else right in the woods at some campground, and you know, guys like me, we're going up some cliff. I mean, I went up the side of a cliff in the past year, and I came home with like 300 abrasions on my legs because we had there's this red brush in the Sierras. It'll cut you up like butter, and I had to go through about 1.5 miles of red brush on this cliff. When I came out of there, there was blood dripping down my shoes. You know, I mean, that's what paranormal investigating is about, is self-sacrifice. And that's, again, where the shows, you know, they'll fall short of, because these people have it made. You know, they got makeup being put on their face and all this other stuff. We don't get that luxury. We go out, we get dirty, and we come back, and I just count my blessings every time I come home. I'm like, I'm alive. I survived the mine. I survived seeing that UFO. I survived that Bigfoot encounter because there are chances that every time I go out there, one of these days I may not survive. This could be the last time anybody hears from me, you know? That's what paranormal investigating is about.
Well, and you never know what you're going to encounter, and especially, you know, up in the Nevada Sierras. And, you know, growing up in Northern California myself, I have spent a lot of times, you know, out there camping, hiking, all different things. And you've actually lived out in that area for a very long time and have been, you know, wandering those Sierras for quite a while. And, you know, obviously you and I have been friends for many years now. We've been, you know, I've followed a lot of what you do, and you're constantly out there, you and your boys out there investigating and, you know, doing all these different things, and it's always amazing. But these Sierras are well known for a lot of activity on actually all the way around. I mean, you get a lot of reportings of UFO sightings. You get a lot of maybe hunters or campers that like really go deep in the wilderness. We're not talking like campgrounds.
Bushwhackers.
Whatever they are. Yeah, because you know, you don't like they got a lot of national parks out there and stuff, and they're like so jam packed with people in the summertime. It's like, you know, everybody's like, oh, I go camping up there all the time, and I never see anything. Well, yeah, they're probably not gonna, you know, be right there, you know, around everybody. But for those that like are hunters or, you know, are used to hiking and you know, because when I would camp, like we would like literally, you know, go way, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, and that like where you, from what our family said was real camping, you know, so we didn't have any porta potties and no, you know, all the fancy stuff. Yes, absolutely. There you go.
Yep.
But there's a lot of stuff that goes on right here, you know, in way out there in the middle of nowhere. Now, I know that you've had multiple UFO sightings. Can you talk a little bit about those? We'll start, and then we'll just kind of go through the different phenomena.
Yeah, sure. Well, last year was a really good year for us as far as UFOs go, because we did a lot of different UFO type of investigations. Well, see, the thing is about that when you're looking for a UFO, actually it's not looking for a UFO will appear. And my son always says to me, Dad, I think they're following us, because I've been getting a lot of UFO pictures. I've been getting some recent video right here on the edge of the Sierras. I had gotten this pulsating UFO, and it was strange because I put it up on the tripod to film it because people were saying, oh, at times I'm too shaky. But I have naturally shaky hands. My hands aren't steady. Photography-wise, it's about the only thing that makes my hands steady is that camera, you know. But when you're dealing with a fast-moving object such as a UFO, sometimes you got to keep up with it. So I put it on the tripod, and the thing lunged at me. It was really weird, but it was enlarged, like it came forward towards me and then zipped back. And I had put it on YouTube to go with Empire City because that's kind of where it was floating over. But it seems like that my reports, like when I put YouTube videos out, I'll have people contact me and say, hey, I seen the same exact thing, because I'll put a date of when I caught that UFO, because I want people to come forth and talk about their experience, match up their evidence with mine, and see if we caught the same thing. But this area is riddled with UFOs. The Sierras, a good portion of them is the Sierra Triangle, which zips across diagonally through Lake Tahoe and the Reno, down to Vegas, and zips back to Fresno. And in that triangle are a lot of strange things, a lot of UFOs, which, and these UFOs, these Bigfoot-like creatures or these monsters, there's a lot of legendary monsters up there. They all could be in relation of the UFOs. Maybe that's why the UFOs are here. But, you know, I started filming these UFOs this past year, and I've also got a lot of reports in that along the Nevada Sierras, people are seeing strange objects in the sky. So, you know, you could basically go out there any night and just hike in the mountains or along the edge of the mountains, and then, you know, you're bound to see a UFO. They're just so common up here in this area. And I was deep in the Sierras. I don't know, probably people won't know the name of it, but there's a place called Salt Springs Reservoir, and I was hiking very deep in the wilderness. I obviously I go out hiking to get away from people, not to be drawn towards people, because the further I get away from people, the better chances I have of capturing a UFO. And, you know, it got dark, and we're hiking along the reservoir, and I look up, and I see this blue UFO, like it was hovering over us, and pulsating, which I believe that the pulsations are created by plasma, which can be used to shield the object, to give off luminescence, things of that sort. But this was a blue and aqua UFO, and it just kept pulsating. And I didn't really tell the team too much. My family goes on a lot of investigations. There are times where I might go off and explore and be like, you guys stay here, I'm going in the mine alone for a couple hours. Or, you know, there's a lot of risk I won't let them take that I will take.
Right.
But that night, not only did I see a blue UFO, but I seen a very similar UFO I had filmed up at the bottom of the Nevada Sierras. So these UFOs up here are quite common. And I don't see UFOs all the time. This isn't Ancient Aliens, but when I do go out, there are times where I will photograph one and not realize that the camera captured it till later. And then there's other incidences, like at night, I'll look up at the sky when I'm hiking. I'll do a lot of night hikes too. And I will look towards the skies, and I'll know if something's out of place or doesn't belong there, because, you know, when we first opened our doors, that's all we did. We never did any investigation earlier than 11 at night. And so for 3, 4, 5 straight years, every weekend, sometimes 2 weekend days, we would go out at night. So, you know, when you're hiking in the mountains and you see something that doesn't belong there, that's, you know, in our atmosphere, that's pulsating, you're talking 6 colors a second, every 2 milliseconds, the corona or the colors change. You could see these objects might look like an orb in the sky that's pulsating, but if you take, for example, a telescope to it, you'll see that the object has an entirely different shape and structure. And we did that with one of our UFOs last year. We hooked up the camera into the telescope, and we filmed it. And when I took a still, it was a ball with two rotating pieces of machinery on it. And so with some of my videos, you know, you could see that there's rotating machinery inside these objects. And the last object was very odd that I filmed my last UFO encounter, because it had in the center this solid ball. It looked like metal. And in clockwise, there was spinning, and it looked like when a wheel spins real fast, you see that motion. You could see that motion. Then you could see the outer plasma glow. But every 2 milliseconds, different color. And if you went through the whole thing, you could probably come up with 30, 40 colors. So, that's the kind of thing we have to look at and question and debunk, because even though a lot of UFO sightings can be explained, there's a lot of UFO sightings that defy explanation. And, I'm always learning, I'm always studying. Being a paranormal investigator means not knowing it all. It means learning and then being able to teach others what you learn. So when I go out there in the field and I see a UFO, I can come back, and I can put the evidence on my site, or I could talk about it on a show or whatever. And what better evidence than to have a person, who's physically firsthand dealt with this, eye to eye to UFO. I've been pretty close to a few UFOs in my time, and I love it. I love chasing UFOs. I like chasing Bigfoot, and I do a lot of cases in the Sierras. It's warming up right now, so that means that since it didn't snow much, the thaw is happening, and that just means that the trails are clear. There's no avalanche zones. So this time of year, you want to go up. There's hardly any people, and you want to be able to, you want to hike, you want to camp. You guys are camping. I'll probably join up with you or whatever, but you want to make sure you pay attention during the day as you do at night, because it's always active, night or day. There's always a UFO up in the sky. You got to know where to look. And my son and I, him and I do most of our investigations. Sometimes my entire family will join me, but he has one of those like Godzilla eyes. He could find a little tiny something on the rug that I looked for all day long. But when he's out in the field, he'll point things out to me. He'll be like, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" And I'm like, and that's when I'll get my camera rolling. But last year was just a very UFO year for me. Some years it's not like that. The year before that was a Bigfoot year for me. Last year, not so much so. I mean, we did have some Bigfoot sightings and things like that, but the big thing was UFOs. And when I went to there's a place called Slide Mountain. The mountain's been collapsing for 50,000 years, and in 1982, the side of the mountain had collapsed, and it killed a reverend or a preacher, and the sound was heard from 30 miles away all the way up into Lake Tahoe. And so we climbed that mountain, but we climbed it on the safe side, not the sliding side. And me, one other guy, and then I had 2 teenage kids. One of them was a friend of my son's because he started taking an interest in the paranormal. We were all out there, and, I'm just smoking a cigar, and I'm having my lunch, my sandwich, some snacks, trying to give myself enough protein, because I know that every time you climb up these mountains to get a good viewpoint, you got to climb down, and it takes a lot of energy out of you, Plus the air is thin, people aren't used to that, and we're a lot more used to it, but we consume a lot of liquids and things on our investigation. But we were just sitting there, and I had a new guy with me. This guy's never seen a UFO. This guy's really hasn't seen much of anything, but I brought him with me because he wanted to give a shot at joining the team. And he was the one that seen an object come out of Lake Tahoe. He's like somebody's flickering their flashlight. And I'm thinking, we're like 12 miles from the lake, up on some 10,000-foot peak. So there's no way you're going to see someone flashing their flashlight. The fog was coming over the lake, and the moment the fog consumed the entire area, and he said there's someone flashing lights, I turn around and look, and I see this. It had to be a saucer 150 feet across, at least. And it was giving off this, like an ember, a golden ember type of glow, and it rose up about 25 feet off the lake. And it was surrounded by fog, but the thing was that I knew the object was real because the bottom of the saucer was giving off a round shadow on the fog in the lake. And so you could see the shadow that it cast. So you knew this was a hovering object. And based on the 12 miles away and its size, 150, 200 feet diameter across easily. And I watched the object. I pulled out my camera real quick, And I snapped 2 photos of it. And all of a sudden, the lights on it just dimmed out. And he's like, I still see it there, Rick. And I was like, okay, well, I'll start rolling some film. And the moment I got ready to start the video camera, I seen the object. What it looked like is a smaller object, like it broke apart in 5 different objects, and they were white and bright. And one of the objects went up to orbit. The other objects went down around Carnelian Bay in North Lake Tahoe. And so for, 10, 15 minutes, we're watching these objects. You could see propulsion underneath them. And they're they're over the fog. I got stills I put in the video. The objects are over pine trees that are 100 feet high. There's a little peninsula. They're hovering over the peninsula. Then 5 seconds later, they're appearing 3 miles on the lakeshore, and then they're appearing in the center of North Lake, and then they're on Carnelian Bay. So we've seen these they were like angel dust, just these flickering objects, and they were moving around. And when you take a millisecond still of one of the objects, you could see that it had anti-gravity propulsion underneath, which obviously says that this is a craft and something moving at a very high rate of speed. That's why we never could see where these objects, where they went next. All we could do is just see, the flashes, and it would pulsate maybe 5, 6 flickers. It would fade out. So I went into the old history, and I found out that the Washoe tribe, who would migrate in the spring and the summer on Lake Tahoe for fishing and hunting, would have encounters with these things called water babies, which reminded me of the story that it told, or the story reminded me of something that might have sounded USO-like, because that's what I just witnessed was a USO, an underwater submerged object, and it rose and became a UFO. And so the legends and the lore and the myth to the area, according to the Washoe, is that these water babies were very powerful, and they would make people sick, a lot of the locals sick. And I thought to myself, maybe these water babies are small alien craft, and maybe the radiation that the anti-gravity device or the whatever it emits on the bottom gives people radiation sickness, and your hair fall out, your teeth fall out, you could die from it. So it sounded like to me that natives were getting radiation sickness, and so there's a lot of things about that. You have to take into consideration that they said that these were beings that lived in the water, and Lake Tahoe is almost 1,700 feet deep, and everybody has said it. Anybody who has like Jacques Cousteau's son and other people have always said there are things at the bottom of that lake that are just, abnormal, beyond normal. And I'm thinking that there is an alien base here, because I came out a week later to do another hike outside Tahoe. They have hundreds of them, and I seen a strong military presence. And this was after I announced my sighting that took place in North Lake Tahoe. They had jets and black helicopters, and so I know that they know, and they know that I know. I know what I've seen. Nobody's going to change my mind. I've had people try to tell me that there are people's flashlights out at the lake, and they just don't get it. I'm 10,000 feet up, 12 miles away from the lake, and whatever it is on top of pine trees and on top of the fog. You have like 10 feet of thick fog, and then you have on the peninsula 50 to 100-foot trees, and these things they're just hovering over the trees, and they're just hovering over the lake. And so I was thinking to myself, nobody believes me until some girl had written me and said, I was on the beach in Carnelian Bay, and she goes, I seen what you caught on video up close. And she even agreed. She witnessed UFOs. People are afraid to talk about it. They'll come to me because they know I'm not scared. They know I've been to Area 51 and I've dealt with the government numerous times. So they'll come tell me, but they will not publicize their sighting. They will not show any evidence, and that's the problem. They come to me. They see my evidence, and then I get told that this is what happened to them, and then I compare experiences. So I know the work that we're doing is good, and it's credible, especially if other people are coming forth. This year I've had at least 100 come forth with watching my videos and just telling me their personal story. And that's what we're really here for. We're really here to kind of debunk things and be there for the people. We're not here for ourselves. We don't do this for ourselves. We do this for other people. Those UFOs, the only thing that comes with those UFOs is the truth. It's to make the public aware these things are in our skies. And the threat of alien invasion could be imminent at any time, and people just need a hard reality check. I don't think society will go into chaos. I watched a show the other night saying that these UFOs, if people realize aliens were real, society would break down, religions would break down. But you know, the Catholic Church, they don't deny aliens. And so people need to understand that these UFOs have been around for millennia, thousands of years probably. Ancient tribes were seeing lights in the sky and craft and beings. So, you know, I figured that Lake Tahoe has an ancient alien connection to whatever I seen come out of that lake is tied into their legend somehow. And I put the two together, and now I completely understand. So we worked a lot with Tahoe last year, and you know, I mean, I got a UFO photo up in Tahoe over Job's Peak, which is an area that we've done 4 expeditions on, and it's had Bigfoot activity. I got another UFO near Lake Tahoe at a place called Martlet Lake, which is on the Flume Trail. And then if you continue on the Flume Trail, you can hit Hobart Reservoir, that was an October special that we just did, was the Hobart Reservoir, where we start at the bottom of the Nevada mountains, we go right over the Sierras, and then we go up to that reservoir, and that place is strange. So it's almost like all these places are connected. It seems like I'm getting UFOs and monster evidence at all these places. And you know that I will not get anything. No paranormal, no UFOs, no Bigfoot. But I would say at least half of the places in the Sierras are very active in the paranormal. There are strange things you cannot explain out there. And so that's where we come in, is, you know, we go in and we investigate places like these. And even if we got to hike 20 miles in one day, it's just, we do what we got to do to get what we got to get. And, you know, if I come home and my knee's the size of a baseball, or my ankle's the size of a baseball, or whatever, it really doesn't matter. All that matters is that, you know, you're doing your work honestly, truthfully, and you know, sometimes you can come back and have a story to share with your friends. A real story, and sometimes with real evidence to back up those finds.
Right. Now, with your sightings that you have had in the past, have you had any kind of issues where you've been contacted maybe by Men in Black, or what people would say are Men in Black, or anything like that?
No, actually I haven't. You know, I used to put a tracker on my website, and the one thing I noticed many years ago, but I don't have the tracker on anymore because I kind of gave up on it, was the U.S. military was constantly going to my website. And now, since YouTube's became the big thing, I can integrate the YouTube videos into my site. So once the cat gets let out of the bag, there is going to be nobody that's going to mess with me. And besides, even if the Men in Black threatened me, I would still laugh at their faces. I'd be like, you got to be serious. That would be me. I'd be like, come on. I'd probably start rolling the camera. I would. I'd be like, you know what? This is my mentality, is if we're going to fight, let's do this. Because that's all the Men in Black do. If you ever looked at Men in Black cases, they use intimidation to hush up UFO sightings.
Absolutely.
And there are some people that are more resilient, but there are some people who a majority of people will give in, because they'll tell them, you know, we'll go after you, we'll go after your family, we'll take down your site, we'll take down your evidence. That was an airplane, you didn't see that. And I think that's BS. Nobody's going to intimidate me like that. I'll pull out my shotgun and chase somebody down my driveway. I don't care. Because I just don't think that people are not going to intimidate me over my UFO sightings. To get a UFO sighting is like an honor. It's like one of the highest honors you could receive in this field. And to film that, and then to have someone, you know, come up to you, maybe they work for government, maybe they're hybrid aliens, I don't know. But to have them try to conceal the truth, it's wrong. UFO, biggest topics to mankind. It's bigger than you or I. And for me to conceal that, I would rather die. Shoot me in the head, because I'm not gonna do that. That's what the problem is. In like America and all these other countries, is that the UFOs are all black ops. They're all hush-hush type of things. And so how does that help anybody collaborate their evidence or learn if all these governments are in denial, but yet they're reverse engineering alien technology for greed?
Right.
Greed is what it is. So I don't want to be greedy.
It doesn't exist, but we're going to recreate it.
Right. I just don't want to be greedy, so I realize the risk involved. I know that at any time somebody could easily kill me, because when you start to know a little too much, some UFOologists have died mysteriously. So I'm kind of a little bit, the way I am right now is I'm always cautious. I'm always armed. I'm always just ready at any time, because I don't know who's after me. I know that I've put out some good evidence. I'm pretty sure the government, they probably don't like it. They never like credible UFO sightings. When Reno and Carson City was having last year around New Year's and Christmas, it made the news. There was lights in the sky. They tried, the government went on there's a government UFO reporting site, and they put down that it's a combination of Venus and a combination of the comet that was very prevalent in our skies last year. And so, they try to make up excuses instead of just coming out and saying, like in Project Blue Book, they at times would come out and be like, this was unexplained. But now everybody's seeing the UFOs. How can you conceal it? In the Men in Black cases, they still continue. There's still UFOologists being threatened. I've been threatened numerous times. I've had strange vehicles pull up to my home, and if I don't know you, I won't answer. If I don't know you, I'll have my shotgun by my side. We can talk. But, my trust issue is like I got to be careful who I work with. We get people that want to join our team, and they just might push me down a ravine. I don't know. So I know my son won't do it. I know Tammy won't do it. I know my other son's not going to do it. But there are people out there who will purposely try to harm me because slowly I'm unveiling layer by layer of this area of what truly exists here. And you can't really deny. I do a lot of videos, so you can't really deny what the film says. You could try to explain it, but, I try to tell people all the time, I've been doing this a long time. I'm an expert in this field. I'm not cocky. I'm not egotistical. I'm a good person that you can learn off of. If you want to take the other route, I tell people you want to watch shows. You think you can learn off shows? Go ahead. But the only way you're really going to learn this is either through me and my journeys, or you're going to come along and see it for yourself. Because if I bring someone along, I've lost all kinds of investigators because they can't handle what we see. That's why I don't have nobody. They're all scared. I just had a girl quit on me the other day. She didn't even start because I sent her some more UFO videos. It's just like I'm sorry I scared you. I mean, it's not like you were going to get anal probed or something here, but it's the truth.
But it is funny though that I see all the time. Like I'll see teams, and I've actually had cases where they've said, a team's come in and some activities happen, and the whole team's gone running out the door, got in their car and left and never came back. And it really makes me shake my head because I think, what in the hell are these people even in the field for? Because, this is what we are here for. Every day. And last year, you saying about there was a lot of UFO activity that you captured, I have to say I have to agree because there was a lot of sightings out here in the Sacramento area as well.
Yep.
I remember that.
We were able to capture some. Yeah, we were able to capture some in our team. And, we do public sky watches during the summertime, so actually from the spring until right about, right before winter when, the weather changes. And so we stop only for 3 months of the year. But I'll tell you, it's like everybody's out there. That's what they want. Everybody, can't wait till they get that sighting. But there are some people that it absolutely scares the hell out of them. Just the thought that, okay, this, I think it's real. This seems kind of cool. But then when they actually see something, it changes their whole thought perception. And you don't want somebody who's going to be scared anyway. So again, maybe it was a good thing, before you get
you're right.
Team. It's hard to find a good team.
It's hard. You're right. It's hard to find someone who is not afraid. I know you guys aren't because you live for the paranormal probably just like me.
Yeah.
But go on. Sorry I interrupted.
Go ahead, Rene.
I was going to say, because when you look at the field that we're in, you have to really look at it, from an explorer's perspective. We know there's possibly going to be some kind of danger of some sort. We don't know exactly who they are, where they're from, what their purpose is. It's the same thing when we do the paranormal stuff. We don't know what we're going to come up against, if it's a human spirit or it's a non-human spirit. And then you talk about aliens. Are they the good aliens or the bad aliens? We have no idea what's going on. So it's, you know, we have to accept the challenge of possible dangers. You know, you may be crossing the line that, we know we might come across some government people. To me, I think, so what? You know, so I'm going to go for it anyway, because that means I'm getting close to it. That means I'm getting close to it. So,
that's true.
You know, to try that truth. You know, so, that's the way I've always felt.
Well, that's right there, Rene. Right, what you said.
We're like we are the pioneers. We are the pioneers to move forward, to take those challenges, even though it may be a little scary, but I get an adrenaline out of it.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Well, we are a different type of team, for sure. Go ahead, Rick.
I was on an investigation about in December, and I came across 5 hunters. And you see, the hunters all surrounded me, and then they started trying to push me and put guns to my head and all this other stuff. I was by myself, you know, hiking on the middle of nowhere. And I did stand my ground to them. My only regret was I didn't bring a weapon like I usually do, because sometimes I feel like, I'll just punch someone in the nose if they bother me. But I was out there, and I met these hunters, and they couldn't fathom what I was doing out there. They couldn't understand that I was on an investigation, that there was a battleground where they were hunting at. There's a lot of history, ancient history to that area as well. And so when I mentioned the station to them, they just couldn't comprehend it, you know. So
right.
They tried to bully me. They tried to point guns. Mm-hmm. One of them shot at me because I said to them, I made it pretty clear, I'm not going back. So and I told them, when I told them, I was like, you'll have to shoot me, because I was serious. Because I have a lot of medical problems in my knee. I've been getting treatments for my knee. I've had an operation. I just had a treatment. Nothing works for it. So a lot of times when you're waist deep in mud and you hike 2 miles through it, and then you get a bunch of punks who think because they outgun you and outman you, you're going to turn away. It becomes more dangerous dealing with people than it does aliens. I would take my chances. I'd take my chance with the aliens any day than those guys pointing guns at me. I did manage to go forward, because I pretty much made it clear, you want to murder me, you murder me. Otherwise, I'm passing. Nothing's going to stop me from where I got to go. I wasn't bothering their hunt. They were hunting the other direction, but humans are very hostile sometimes, and that's why I think these aliens don't land in the middle of New York City. Right. Because imagine if humans act that way with me. I'm just a guy limping on a bad knee, and I'm not carrying any weapons. I've just got a camera with me and a couple of my supplies, and you point guns at me. What are you going to do if a friendly alien race lands in your front property? Are you going to shoot that, or are you going to try to make an intelligent connection with that creature?
Right.
And my choice is, I don't care if they're hostile or they're friendly, I'm still going to make an attempt to make a connection, an intelligent connection with them, not do an unintelligent thing like raise a gun to it, because that might mean my death. I mean, if a race is millions of years old, their brain capacity is millions of years old. It means all they have to do is think about it, and they could melt my brain. I don't want my brain melted, so no. We don't raise guns at aliens. You encounter aliens, you try to take it slow, and you try to, at least show some intelligence. Don't give them a reason to think that mankind is a hostile, or Earth's a hostile world. It is a hostile world.
Or at least not all of us are, because they know that, Earth is a hostile place, because every time they come into the skies, we either send jets after them or try to shoot them down. So, I mean, they know that we're hostile, but not all of us, just as we assume that not all of them are hostile. And my biggest thing is that, I've always said this, is that, yes, the alien races out there are so much more advanced than us that, we're like an infant, like a 2-week-old baby compared to, what these people, are in intelligence. But we're so infantile in it. But if they wanted to take us out, they absolutely could. If they wanted to come in and take over the Earth, I'm sure they possibly could. All these different things. If they really wanted to hurt us, they didn't have to abduct people and bring them back. They could keep them and eat them, or whatever. There are so many things. So, and although we do hear the stories that there are some really bad, races of aliens that, don't bring people back, and they do use them for food and things like that. But again, they're not all the same. So it shows that, no matter what, I mean, there are good and bad in everything. And for people to think that we could, even within the Earth that we live on, we have people of all different colors. We're all, different shapes of eyes, different colors of skin, all different shapes of bodies. But we're all, we're all, different, but we're all the same. but we can't, to fathom, and not to be able to fathom that we could possibly, have anything out there, that we would only be the only species in the whole universe on this little planet, just completely blows my mind that people, are so stuck back in the old ages that they would believe this when there is evidence that goes way back to cave, drawings and in the pyramids and all these things where they're showing these dipped and flying objects and alien races. It's like, come on. I mean, we talk about disclosure all the time. Our opinion here, at least mine and Renee, that we always talk about here, is that, people are always asking, they're wanting for, when's disclosure going to happen? Everybody's expecting and waiting.
Yeah,
huh?
It's happened. It's already happened.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what we always say here. Go ahead.
Go
ahead, Rick.
Well, I think with the whole disclosure thing, I think there is very powerful people trying to keep the truth from the rest of the world. But again, it goes back to the whole greed thing. And I don't, one incident I look back to when you talk about hostile aliens is the Dyatlov Pass incident in Russia, which has always been an interest of mine, because when they put out that film that Bigfoot had killed those people, I was like, no, hell no. These people had what appeared to be radiation poisoning. Their skin was colorized like leather. They were aged, which is, UFOs obviously must use time travel methods, because you have 450, 500 million stars in the Milky Way. You have 9 mini galaxies around us. Then you have about 1 billion galaxies, and some of those galaxies have 1 billion stars and planets and solar systems. So it would be ignorant to say we are the only life out there. And if people tell me, hey, you're nuts for believing there's other life out there, they're the nuts ones, because statistically, if you look at the statistics, all the UFO sightings is 1 million a year. And then you have all these crashes, notable crashes, and then you have documents, and even though things are blacked out, you know what they say. You look at Project Blue Book, you got all those projects that do not deny that these things exist. They used to have a manual, Blue Planet Project or something. They used to have a manual, and when you'd go in the Air Force, they would make you take a school. You'd have to school for at least a week on extraterrestrials, the type of extraterrestrials, the type of craft, all in ufology. You'd have to take that course all the way up, I believe, until the 70s. But the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you'd get a UFO manual when you joined, because at the time we were more open. And now that, years are passing by, it seems like the government is tightening their grip on this. And I've watched time and time again. I've seen UFOs out here, and I've watched the government put on their site, it's Venus. It's always Venus. It's like, and I know Venus. It's a planet. It does not flicker.
Or
it does not pulsate. Yeah. They always try to do that, and people just gotta be smarter than them, and they gotta realize this stuff exists. I've been out at Area 51. I've seen a couple UFOs. It doesn't mean that those UFOs were aliens, but it could mean that governments like our own are reverse engineering the technology to benefit themselves, because that technology comes with time travel, the ability to fly 10,000 miles an hour, the ability to go to Mars and back in 10 minutes. It's technology that these men think that they should have, the elites, and meanwhile it's not being shared with the public. And they say it's for our own good. That's what the government is like. It's for the people. They're not doing me any favors. If they would be willing to disclose, I would be willing to actually tell them what I know. But they would have to fully disclose what they know to the world, or otherwise, it's like, screw you. If you're going to keep lying to people, then you don't need to be on my team. If people want to be team players, then the best way to do it is, I don't care if you run this group, that group, it's to collaborate your evidence and your finds together and to work together, which is why I'm so, willing to work with your group, whether I come out that way, which I have been out your way a few times in the last year. I do go to Sacramento. I live 2.5 hours from it, so I do enjoy going up that way. But this region, it has a lot of UFOs, and I looked, because I did some research at this one place that borders Nevada and Lake Tahoe, and you climb up in the mountains, and there's 4 or 5 people that are missing in that canyon. All of them have gone up and are never seen again. And so, what I could tell people is, yes, there are aliens that take you. So some people have a little PTSD when it comes to UFOs because they think, oh no, I'm going to be taken the rest of my life. That's what I think happened to Flight 370. I think it was slowly powered down. I think a UFO took it, and I think that these people may have been sent to some slave planet because obviously if you're elite or you're millions of years old, you either have technology or others do your work for you. And so, you might have a planet, for example, where the Greys are from, and they might have to have an element mind out of their mind, and they might need people for that, to be able to power their ships. So when people disappear and are never found again, you have to understand people just don't disappear. It's either A, they got lost and they died, B, they were killed and shoved somewhere like in a shallow grave or dumped somewhere, or 3, aliens got to them and took them. And maybe these people went willingly. I don't know. I know if aliens asked me to go journey in space with them, I would be gone forever because it's bigger than you or I. It's bigger than, it's one of those things that's like, I could live forever and I could absorb all this knowledge. Or I could stay here on this planet and see famine, war, death, disease, pole shifts, tsunamis, earthquakes, murder, rape, pillaging, all those things, government collapse. Or I could go in space and maybe these aliens have found a way through, peace and technology, which to me, technology can do amazing things. And it would be great if aliens shared their medical technology where we have the ability to get rid of cancer and AIDS and all these things. That technology is beneficial, but you know what? It's ruined. Any chance we ever have of getting that technology is ruined because the government will not disclose things. If the government would disclose things would be a lot different. Aliens in ancient times were more prevalent because these tribes and these ancient people realize that, hey, these aliens, these ancient visitors, or these people from another world have something for us, and that is knowledge. But today, it isn't like that. The government wants those UFOs. They want the ability to spy on Russia without ever being seen or ever caught on radar, and it's getting to be ridiculous. And so, I got people that write me all the time, and they say, no, life on other planets is impossible. It's not. But when they first went to Mars, they had collected microbes, which is a sign that life was there. And NASA literally ignored this expert who built that, who built it. So, built the whole ship to go out there and land and take samples. NASA was in denial. And then you look at NASA, they're blacking out things. Like from the moon missions, they have tape put over things. It's like, what the heck is that? You show me every day clear pictures from the Hubble. You show me galaxies, nebulas, black holes, star systems, other galaxies are clear as ever. But you can't show me a clear photo of our moon. You have things taped out and blacked out. Why? That's the question. And see, I may never find the answer to that because I'm banned from Cape Canaveral and NASA. I've already had a run-in with the government there, and they don't want me anywhere near the space shuttle or Kennedy. I can't even go to Kennedy to go to the museum because I'm banned because I was out looking for UFOs out there. So,
Well,
I mean,
one thing I will say is about, the, abductions, different things. I mean, my biggest thing is that, my opinion is that 100%, there are many facets of our government working, with alien races. That I wholeheartedly believe is true, which then, plays into all of this, anything that's caught by NASA, or caught like on the cameras, the government is going to come up with an alternative answer. They're always going to run interference to keep us, guessing or not knowing. The thing is now is that, this doesn't just happen in the United States. This happens worldwide. People see UFOs everywhere. And other governments have now started coming forward and releasing all of their documents from all these years. And, you know, what everybody seems to be saying, and Renee, you correct me because I know we've talked about this before, is, you know, that there was an actual, like, agreement that was, you know, made between the nations and the alien races. And, you know, and that was that, you know, they would keep them secret and also allow them to, in exchange for technology and all this information, that they would allow them to take an experiment on our citizens, you know, and then, you know, they were putting them back. A lot of it is experimentation. A lot of things happen, but, you know, as far as Mars and the moon, I mean, for many of us out there, ufologists, you know, don't believe that any of that crap. We know that this stuff exists. I've had Laura Eisenhower on my show and became good friends with her over the years. And, you know, her grandfather was, you know, great-grandfather was President Eisenhower, you know, Dwight Eisenhower, and, you know, was all in the Mars project, you know, that was going on. So, you know, again, we've just been raised, you know, or I want to say brainwashed. You know, even though everybody wants to come here and it's supposed to be such a great country, we are brainwashed, though, different than if we were in, you know, China. You know, we are taught the way things, we are taught to believe that our government would never betray us or keep secrets from us. And the further and further along that we got, the darker the secrets got, the more they were trying to be covered up. But now, and all of this was, you know, done by fear. But people just like you, Rick, are finally tired of being scared. You know, people who are in the military, even though they take an oath on this stuff, are coming forward and they say, you know what, yep, we probably will get taken out or we'll be court-martialed and nobody will see us or our families, but oh well. Yeah. So at some point we've got to come forward. And I think that that's what we all here, you know, do on different levels. You know, everybody has a different role that they play of how we get the information and to bring the truth forward, whether it's through, you know, I know you, Rick, for a long time did a radio show. You know, now you're just out in the field. You know, Renee and I do these radio shows on all these topics to bring the truth out, you know, to all these people. And I think that, you know, so many people were starting to think, now it's not working. But now it is, because countries, you know, presidents of other countries are coming forward and saying, you know what, if your sorry-ass country doesn't want to, you know, give the truth to their citizens, well, we'll put it out there for them to see. And it wasn't just one, and it wasn't just two, and it wasn't just three countries. I mean, they were one after another posting all this stuff. So we're to believe that everywhere else in the world is finally going to give up this charade that they don't exist and they've known about them for a long time. The United States is going to dig their heels in the ground and say, we're telling you, you know, believe us, we're telling you the truth. And sad enough to say that there's enough that believe so wholeheartedly that they still hold it true. But there's enough of us that are finally saying, no. Like, the jig is up.
Yeah.
We're no more.
Even with the Disclosure Project that Richard Greer is bringing out and everything, he brought a lot of pilots, even astronauts, to speak in Congress, you know, before Congress about, you know, these things are taking place. There are beings on the moon. They've been around around the space station. They've been around the shuttle, and they're trying to come out, bringing out more and more. And I've noticed in the past few years that some of these same ones are trying to be discredited by the government. There are many who are, you know, passed on. Even astronauts have passed on recently. So there's a lot of stuff that is going on within our government to try to stop this whole Disclosure Project from moving forward. You know,
well, I've talked to some government. I have talked to some military about some of the private things, and some of them are willing to disclose info to me because they just know I'm at the point I just don't give a crap. I mean, there's too many of us that know the truth, and as long as we keep pushing and pushing and pushing, they're going to have to come out with something. They're going to have, I mean, they could, once you start lying a lot and you get caught up in your lies, you're going to get caught eventually. And they've been caught a few times, but in recent times, it's becoming, like in my area where I live, I'm having, like, people by the dozens that are seeing the same object I'm seeing. The only difference is they're too scared to hold that camera and film. I'm not. I will bust out the tripod, I will bust out the camera, and I will film it because I know that I could tell you stories all day long, but it's evidence that speaks for itself.
Right.
And there will always be people that will try to stop this from occurring. But there are, like Christina says, there are other countries that are coming forward. If you look at the, I guess it's the defense minister or whatever for Canada, I could be wrong, but he's been talking a lot about UFOs in Canada, about alien life forms visiting this planet. And so it's something we need to, as a whole, we need to pay attention to what other countries are saying. It doesn't matter if the U.S. doesn't want to disclose it. We know that the U.S. only cares about getting their hands on that tech. They don't care. They don't care if. I'll tell you right now. I will tell you something right now that none of you are going to believe. But if the United States goes to crap, they're going to all go underground and they're going to leave all of us to fight. And they're not going to care about you. There will be no government. It'll be underground, and when the smoke clears, they'll come up and think that they could repopulate the planet in their own sick ways. But I've gotten information from military intel, from some people who are willing to confide in me, and you know, I'll never give away a name. They could torture me forever. But I've been told about the underground bases, and it is true that if you are a senator, you're in Congress, you're the president, you're affiliated with any of the senators' families, all those people will get transported underground, and we will burn. We will, if it's a hostile alien race, we will be the ones to face it. They will stay underground, and I think it's funny. Let them stay underground, because I'm pretty sure that UFOs or aliens have technology to use radiation and microwaves deep within the Earth. So basically, I won't want to be in that hot box. I won't want to be microwaved in some military base underground, would you?
Nope, not at all.
You're only safe, let me say one more thing, Renee.
Sure.
You're only safe, my friend, is in an alien invasion if you go to somewhere so remote where man hasn't been that the aliens just don't care to strike that area. It's just too...
Right.
It's just, you know what I'm saying? It's just, who cares? They'd be more concerned with Washington or L.A. before they would ever look at some peak in the high Sierras.
Right.
You know?
I agree with you there, for sure.
Yep.
You know, and that's the other thing, too. You know, if they weren't hostile or anything, you know, I'm a lot like you. Like, yeah, I'll go. I mean, because if that's part of being the explorer, part of you learn, then yeah, I would definitely would take the trip. You know, they may not be at your best interest, but at the same time, well, you're taking that risk to learn all you can about these beings. You know, to understand what you're about, understand what they're about. You know, it could be a good thing. You know, so yeah, I would be on that. I would be on that ship in a second. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'd be a space cowboy too. I'd be all the way. I'd walk right in that ship. I'd be like, hey, take me back where I come from, because I am almost sure that humans come from the stars. I'm also, I almost have a theory, but I've been doing some studying, and I found out that we received a transmission from Mars 1 million years ago, and that transmission, basically the planet was in peril, and a lot of ufologists and scientists are starting to believe that maybe the life that was on Mars visited Earth. After all, they were sister planets. They were a lot alike. They both had water on them. Earth has it, and Mars did. Now it's all underneath the ground.
Right.
But I would have a chance to learn more of, where do I come from? Do I come from Mars? Do I derive from another galaxy? I would want to know these things, and I know the only souls you're going to have, or the only thing you're going to have to find those answers, would be some ancient race of visitors who's been probably visiting Earth before man even came into play. And of course, then you got the whole theory that there was dinosaurs, and those dinosaurs evolved into a reptilian-like species, and they live underground. So it's possible that, you know, we have multiple species on our planet, intelligent species, like you got your reptilians, your humans, your Bigfoot, and all these species branched off, and they're in different parts of the world, including maybe even underground. But I would want to know these things. And I think that knowledge, I mean, to sacrifice being on this planet, to have that knowledge, to go to another star system and spend the next 1,000 years seeing the stars and planets, I mean, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'm not afraid. I'm an explorer, and that's what an explorer does. They don't back down. They see it through. And those are the type of people I like to hang with, because I've been doing this a long time. I'm getting old. I'm getting tired. I got injuries. I'm beat up. and I still see people 18, 19, 20, 20s, 30s, and they are just scared of everything. I cannot get them to even walk far from the vehicle. I have a local guy who's a buddy of mine, and he sees a lot of, he freelance, he goes out and he goes and sees UFOs and tells me some of the spots where I could see extraterrestrials around here, and you know, it's just that people are becoming aware, and very few of us brave what others are will brave the wilderness, will brave the unknown. There's very few of us left like that. And the ones who won't are the ones who are always asking, how come I don't see no UFOs? How come I don't see a ghost? How come I don't see Bigfoot?
Exactly.
Well, it's simple answer. You want to see these things, and then you need to go to places where man has never been. And I've been to some places where man has never stood, never been. I've climbed up on cliffs. Sometimes I get an itch in my system where I'm out hiking, and all of a sudden I see that cliff, and I just got to go up the top of it and go check the plateau out and see if there's tracks up there. And sometimes the gamble pays off. I climbed a cliff one time in the Sierras up at Ebbets Pass. We did that. Went up the side of this ghost town that's out there. It's actually Kongsberg. I went way above Kongsberg, and I seen tracks, strange tracks up on this plateau, but we had to climb straight up. So sometimes the rewards outweigh the risk. And so I could think of, getting in a UFO, that might be a greater reward than the risk itself. And yeah, it could be a risk. You may not end up living through it, but you have to know. You can't just go through life hiding in your house and not know the truth. It's like these are things I have to know before I die. I cannot just die and not know where I come from, who I am, and who these visitors are. I have to know.
You got to look at too of the civilizations that we've had here before that built all these big monuments. Mankind haven't quite figured out how they did it, how they moved these big stones, how they build that huge pyramid. And it's like, well, what happened to those people? Well, maybe they already had left. They've learned and then they moved.
Well, it's the civilization found up. It's up in the Andes Mountains. They have big blocks. The stone's not even native to that area, and it's way up in the mountains. And everything looks like it's been cut by a laser. Perfect beveled edges. Back then, they did not have that technology. So we have to ask ourselves, did some civilizations come here and move on? Are some moving back and forth? Like, for example, Bigfoot may be an alien visitor that just surveys the area, and then you see strange lights, and he's either gone, or sometimes you see strange lights in an area, and then a couple weeks later, you'll start finding Bigfoot tracks. I really think that, the two are related to some extent. I think that if there's monkeys on Earth, or there's Gigantopithecus on Earth that roamed this planet at one time, I think that we all come from the same. So I think that on other planets, there might be a planet that's ruled by a primate-like creature that's just millions of years old and has evolved into a main intelligence. And so maybe they come to Earth. Maybe that's why we've been seeing them for hundreds of years. I know that thousands of years ago, even a couple thousand years ago, before the pyramids were even built, the Washoe and have seen Bigfoot-like creatures and lights in the sky. And I get some of the tribe doesn't like me, but there's other members of the tribe who will write me privately, and they're like, we've been seeing this for thousands of years. And so I know I'm on to something. I know that when I came here to the Sierras, I stumbled upon things that are bigger than all of us. And that's, the aliens, the Bigfoot, the monsters, even ghosts. I always mix ghost into my investigations because I'll take the paranormal any which way I can get it. I don't care what kind of phenomena it is. I keep an open mind. I learn about it. I study it. Then I turn around and I try to educate people the proper way, not the television way, but the way that people should learn by going out there. And if you want to see these UFOs, just put yourself in the situation. And so we do that. We have our night hikes. We have our, day outings. And the one thing I always tell my team or my kids or even my son and Tammy, always look at the sky. Don't always hike with your face down on the ground, because if you look at the sky, there's a good chance during that 20-mile hike you might see a UFO, but you won't see it if you don't work hard at it. And that's where I try to teach people, you got to work hard. and you'll see this stuff on TV, and it's like every time there's a new episode, they get something, and that's not how paranormal investigating works. You might have to work all day long just to find that one Bigfoot track, and not sit there and, be on a show and they just film, you got the producer following you with the camera for 10 minutes telling you to pretend like you're hiking for miles and you're not. And so the evidence that we get in relation to UFOs and Bigfoot, it's earned. It was through blood, sweat, and tears, by me looking up, by me camping, by me hiking, by me getting muddy up to my waist. I've fallen in so many creeks and rivers, and I banged back of my head, falling down off a wet log. I've been there. I've once had to get airlifted off a mountain for looking for UFOs, and it was bad. But the rocks, see, if you're in Nevada and you go in southern Nevada where there's a lot of UFOs, those mountains contain a lot of sharp rock. And so I cliff climbed all day, and it ripped off my shoes, ripped off my clothes, and I was stuck on some peak in the middle of a storm with nothing, having to go back in the night, and it was raining, and all my equipment got wet, and I couldn't see. I ended up using a walkie-talkie and call a helicopter on the walkie-talkie, because I hated cell phones back then. But I was up there looking for UFOs, and I was lying there in the dark. I had to burn my ripped clothes and to keep warm from hypothermia, and I was up in this canyon on some cliff, and I'm just standing there looking at this, looking at the sky and thinking, at any time, I heard some strange things, but I didn't think nothing of it, but at the time, I'm lying there injured. My feet are all cut up from the rocks. I'm cliff climbing barefoot. I'm freezing of hypothermia almost. All that just to seek out the truth. And I'm lifted on a helicopter, and I put it on my YouTube, and I'm filming it, and you see my foot's all bloody and stuff. But that's just the type of commitment that's involved. If you really want to find the truth, you will risk your life for it. If you don't, you may not have that experience. And people like you and I were fortunate to have those experiences, because we put ourselves in that situation. But you have to agree, at least, 80% of the population, the response I get from most people is, no way am I going to go out at night in the middle of there. And so, no truth can ever be discovered unless it's for the true explorers in the field who go out there and they just, they give it all they got, and they just don't care if they get a few injuries or they get airlifted. And I don't care. As long I've seen so much in my life, it's too late to turn back now. I've seen too much. I know too much. So I don't care if I end up dying, as long as I end up knowing the truth. That's all that matters. If people want to die, if the masses want to die and not realize that this type of phenomena is real, it's their loss. Because what's in the stars is the last frontier. Last frontier.
And say like if something was to happen to you and you didn't come back, and the people like your family would know exactly what area you probably went to, somebody's going to follow in your footsteps and search those areas, and that's the thing, to carry on the adventure, the exploring what where you ended, and pick up from there, because that's how real exploring takes place. That's how we learn. So that's always an important thing in my book, when you go into a true exploring for that truth.
Exactly. You can have said it better. The thing is that when I die, I want people to carry on, and these people that carry on need to understand that we must never stop seeking the truth.
Right.
I personally, if something happens to me, I hope people will find my website an inspiration. I hope they will find my work an inspiration enough to go to these places that I've been to, and to realize that, some areas I've marked paranormal hotspots, because I've had close encounters. I've had things happen to me, and I know those things are real. I cannot deny what my eyes see. And I try so hard out in the field to debunk things, and sometimes I get down to the bottom. It's this animal, it's this bird. But there's a lot of things that happen to me in the wilderness I cannot debunk. It's not just UFOs, it's monsters, it's Bigfoot. Last year I've made a couple huge Bigfoot discoveries, may have even got one on film. And, people will still try to find every reason to say it's something else, because to them they think that it's not possible that humans branched off in different ways. Like for example, you have the whole aquatic ape theory where humans may have possibly branched off into the ocean and now are mermaids and mermaids. And then you have your Bigfoot theory of a primate human hybrid that roams the woods. And you know, I watch monster shows, monster documentaries, I don't watch the ones where people are acting, but I watch ones on physical cases like the Flatwoods Monster and Pigman. And I watch those because I try to learn about all the monsters. And when you look at it, there is a few hundred, maybe 300 to 500 different monsters in the United States. And some of those monsters, maybe they're not monsters at all. Maybe they're just aliens, and they don't look like you and I. So people are like, monster, monster. And maybe they're visitors from another world, and the first thing, it's either fight or flight. And with most people, it's flight. It's like, I'm out of here. And I've had, and I'll tell you what, went back to an area called Showers Lake, and there was a lady who came out to see me for a week. I'm not going to mention names or anything like that, but I took her. Showers Lake is one of my areas that I've done extensive Bigfoot research at, and each time I go up to that region, I hike out to a different lake. And so far, I think 4 out of the 5 areas in that basin, I have had Bigfoot activity. But one of my last trips out there, I took this person, and we went high up above Red Peak, really high. I mean, it looks like you're going to fall to your death. And there was some snow on the ground. It was going to be in the 50s, but there was snow left from April snow that from a storm prior 2 weeks. And I took both of my boys out there and her, and when we got to the ridge, she's like, I'm not doing no more. I'm going to sit here and wait for you to come back. I said, I'm not coming back for like 6 hours. You know, we're talking like a 5-mile hike through knee-deep snow. And it was hard because of we set off like 6 in the morning. It was hard, but when it got to around 12 noon, we started sinking in. And you have to be careful because there's the Truckee River that cuts through there, and you got to cross it, and the ice is weak. You know, my kids, I found a safe spot for them to walk, but me stepping through that, I could fall through the river under the ice and drown. But we got almost to the lake, and I was so mad because this girl quit on me, like right on the spot. I was like, I'm waiting here. She's like, she made my kids carry her bottled water. She made my kids carry her paranormal supplies. She was pissed because there was snow. You don't know when you go up to the Sierras in April if there's snow or not. Some mountains have snow. Sometimes it's just patches. Sometimes it's 5 feet deep, 20 feet deep. I don't know. But we had gotten snow, so I didn't know what it was like. But I told her, I said, you know what? It's manageable. We can do it. It's only knee deep. There's areas where there's dry land. There's areas where there's some drifts. Hike around them if you don't like it. But me and my kids, she sat behind, and we got all the way almost to the lake. And all of a sudden, we hear snapping of branches really loud, and we hear odd vocalizations. First in front of us, then to the left of us, then to the right of us. And it just, you had it sounded like 3 Bigfoot-like creatures coming in at us.
Wow. And
my kids and I heard, my son's a skeptic. He don't believe in none of this. And he was quite intimidated by it because how do you deal with something you can't see? You know, there was no trails. It was just snow, and it was forest in this basin. And we hear 3 large creatures approaching us, and one of them was making primate-like sounds, but another one was speaking in a language I could not possibly understand. But we were the only humans up there, obviously. I mean, it's not very friendly hiking when you can't find the trail, and very few people are, if they can't see the trail, they're not going to go. But my kids and I, we stood still, and we could hear them breaking branches, coming closer and closer. Bears, you know, are still not really present in that basin because it's still cold. And we sat on a lake, and we had a picnic. And me and the kids were discussing our experience. It's something I like to do after something happens, is sit down and discuss what happened. And, you know, you could hear 3 creatures. So then when we left and packed up our backpacks, warmed our feet up and all these things, I found a massive footprint in the area where they were closing in on us. and it had toes and everything, and it was in the snow, which is one of the reasons why I like to hike in snow, because that's where some of the best Bigfoot prints are that you find. That's why you got sometimes, a little feet freezing is nothing in comparison to finding an actual Bigfoot track. The feeling of finding that track is just it's an awesome feeling. If you see these creatures, it's an awesome feeling. If somebody does not believe in these creatures and they go out and they see a UFO or they see a Bigfoot or they see a monster, they may have not done the research and it may traumatize them. But when you're someone like me who already is well aware of these things that exist, for me that is just science. It's a part of life. And so, my kids, they're a lot like me. They keep their cool. They don't panic and run. We just stood still, and it was like they came up to check us out. I mean, you could clearly see trees and things swaying, and all three ends. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I know that there was the Bigfoot Wars in the Sierras, which occurred where the Bigfoot creatures were actually taking babies and women, and the women for mating, and maybe the babies to actually eat, which kind of sounds gross, but the Indians fought back, and now these creatures in the Sierras have they're a lot calmer. They usually will come check you out and just skedaddle or run off. But I mean, that was one of my terrifying moments last year. It's so hard when you stand still and you don't have one thing moving towards you, but you have three creatures, and you can hear they're at least 500-600 pounds apiece, and they're just talking amongst each other, because I do believe these creatures are intelligent and probably have formed their own language. But see, this is an area, check this out, this is an area that I had gotten a UFO hovering over a couple years prior to this incident. So then I pieced together the two and said, maybe the UFO and these creatures are two of the same. Maybe there's a direct correlation between those two. So, I felt when I got back to my investigator, she was not at the spot. And I started to panic, and I'm a tracker in the woods. I mean, if you're hiding in the woods, I'll find you. But I tracked her, and I found her, camping out in a parking lot on the Pass 88, the Carson Pass. She was camping out, and didn't give me her two-way radio to keep in touch. I thought maybe a bear got to her, or who knows. But I told her, I said, you should have came along, because you just missed an encounter. And having another camera running, I had both my cameras running, both of them, during the incident. But having a third camera in another direction, more eyes, would have helped. But she just spazzed out on me. I was like, I'm not going any further. I can't do this. And I'm like, can't's not in my vocabulary. If I can bust a knee doing this, or I have all these medical issues and I can do it, you surely can do it. But you have to. The whole thing is that believing comes from inside. You have to know yourself to be a good paranormal investigator. You have to know how far are you willing to go to get the answer that you seek. So, as far as my whole thing is, I'll go as far as it takes. If it means I have to climb the extra mile, I will do it, because that evidence speaks for itself. And when it's undeniable to our community, when I put it on our site, which I put cases on our site pretty religiously, and people look at it, they know it comes from me. They know it comes from my hard work. It's not like I've had people write me saying, oh, you set that up. You brought out, they'll accuse me of bringing out RC helicopters at night, and I got accused of building a Bigfoot shelter. This thing, the logs were a couple 100 pounds apiece. It's like, I just carried them up the mountain and built this thing. Because somebody tried to accuse me and my son building that shelter. So it's it's people can get very ignorant about things, and they just don't understand. There's no skits, nothing is staged. All I do is go out into the wilderness, and all I am is the documenter. If I see it, I will document it. You could form your own conclusions. There are times I see things like Bigfoot I've seen a couple times. By the time I grab my camera and get it powered up, it's gone. So sometimes, not in the Scotts Lake case. I did get something on film at Scotts Lake, and it's tall and black, and it goes from left to right at an enormous speed as if it hops over a fallen tree. And that was just because I was running film at the time. I didn't see it. I didn't. But, sometimes you catch things on film and you're like, oops, I didn't know I got that. And there's other times if I see it, I will film it for my viewers and my friends so that they can see it too. If you're too scared to hold that camera and film what you're seeing, then what's the point of even going back and exploring?
Right.
Because that's the whole sole purpose you're exploring. You're like, I'm exploring because I want to see a UFO or I want to see Bigfoot. And if you go back there and you run, like this new Bigfoot video that Arise, a guy, he's breathing heavy and he gets it on film and then he starts running. And I'm like, man, why couldn't this guy stand there for a couple minutes and film this thing? It wasn't charging him. It wasn't paying any attention to him, which is why I think the film's fake. I think it's made to look dramatic. I think that the person wants everyone to think, oh, it's Bigfoot, I'm scared, and I'm running. Not me. I see Bigfoot. The scientific thing to do would be to film it as most as you could, unless it becomes agitated with your presence. You might have to just back up a little, but you're, as a scientist of the paranormal, I have to go in and I have to hold out as long as I can, because if I just get a little 1 second clip of something, it could be anything. I got to sit there and how you learn about, for example, how they learned about gorillas is they kept hanging around the gorillas.
Right.
I can't even think of her name, but she would go up there and just observe them, and you photograph and you video them, and you kind of learn about their behaviors and their habitat and their means of survival. And so Bigfoot is something in the same concept. If this is the North American ape, for example, you want to go to their habitat as close as you can get and film them fishing, gathering berries. Maybe they're using some language between each other, but these are things that you primarily want to focus on. Not all of a sudden you step up on it with the camera and you're like, oh, let me run. I mean, you start running. What if you fall off the edge? You roll down a bank. You fall off a cliff. I drive and I hike along cliffs all summer, all spring, all year round. And I've realized that if I was to panic at everything I see, I would have fallen off the cliff a long time ago.
Right. So, exactly. And that's the thing. When you're exploring something like that, and you come across a community of Bigfoot, you do exactly like you would with any primate like the gorilla. You shoot them from a distance, with the camera. Then another time you move a little closer, so they get used to seeing you there. That you're not there to harm them, and who knows how close you can actually get. But they'll let you know. They will let you know. Hey, don't come in close. Right.
If they don't want you there, they'll throw rocks at you. They'll just toss rocks. Then that's a sign that they don't want you there.
Yeah, and so then he's like, okay, I'm going. Okay, but as long as you got your shot, I'm good.
Yeah, that's I aim always to collect the evidence. I've been out, like my biggest case of Bigfoot, I guess you could say, was last year ago. It was my birthday, and I had a new investigator. I brought with me another new investigator who ended up quitting. But when he went out with me, he was a witness to it. We climbed up. We left the trail, and we climbed up into the wilderness. We climbed some cliff, then we went through woods, and we followed some no-name creek and went through some meadows and got up near Tahoe, and we found a Bigfoot encampment. And it was made, they used the tree as a pillar, and then they collected. There was a forest fire at the bottom of Kings Canyon, so the firemen had chopped a bunch of logs. Now, some of the logs weigh, probably up to 200-300 pounds. Some of them, the shelter that was made, they used the tree as like a center pillar, and then where the way the wind comes down off of Tahoe, that end was fortified with extra logs, wood close together, and then they piled bark and other things on it, and it had these 3 logs inside that were stripped of its bark, it's very soft wood, like pillows to lie on, and the pillows were in a triangular area in the fortified section that comes out further, while the rest of the shelter, they used logs, and they interlocked everything around this tree. It wasn't, when people were calling it a teepee, because I had Mysterious Universe post my video and my webpage update, and people kept calling it a teepee. They're like, you're an idiot, that's a teepee. And I'm just like, first off, they really don't call them teepees on the East Coast, they call them bark houses. And next of all, I've looked at a few bark houses, some Indian sites I've been to, some museums, and I've looked at bark houses. They're fully enclosed. They wrap bearskin over the entrance to keep them warm, and then they can burn a fire as it goes to the top. This was not the case. This was wide open, where you could walk between the slats, and in the one end was fortified. And to me, I found a Bigfoot print nearby, which was the first sign that, it was heading up over towards Tahoe. And if you go to the base of the Sierras all the way to Tahoe, that's a good 15 miles in between of mountains. And so whatever it was went up the hill and made a track. Nearby, I found a special type of crystallized rock. It was almost like a geode. It had a bunch of quartz crystals inside and was hollowed out. And the rock was sitting on a log, a fallen tree. And the fallen tree had about maybe 200 scratches and nicks in it, to a point of some areas the bark was just falling off. And, of course, as you know, Bigfoot used the art of tree banging to communicate or warn one another. So I found the rock, the warning system, and I guess the crystals, they used some rock I've never seen in this area of Tahoe, but obviously it was on purpose because there was crystal. And so maybe they were using this type of rock so that they could amplify the sound. But the Bigfoot encampment also had some kind of what they refer to, hunters will sometimes hang their meat so that bears can't get to it off a branch. And it had used a pine cone and some twine, because these creatures are scavengers too. And the twine was tied to the cone, and then it looked like they interweaved it as if they could, hang meat off it. Because even a family of Bigfoot, there's no way. If they get some substantial kill, it's possible they may live off that meat for a few days. People think, a Sasquatch could eat a deer all in one day, and it's, these Sasquatch, they have adolescents, they have younger kin, and sometimes you get an entire family. So I found right next to the Bigfoot encampment a broken hind leg of a deer, and it was a force fracture, because the guy I was with specialized in forensics. It was a force fracture, meaning someone grabbed the bone and broke it with the power of their hands, based on the split. Seasonally split, and the marrow had been sucked out of it. And I try to explain to people, this mutilation is not bear, it's not mountain lion. A human didn't have the strength to break that bone. That's a very, you would not have the strength to do that, and the marrow sucked out. And then we also seen, what made me think there was an adolescent there, is we found a little golf ball tucked under the tree or the log that the rock was on. And I had figured that maybe an adolescent Bigfoot may have went down to the bottom of the canyon where the golf course is. And primates like to play with balls. They like to throw them up and down in the air. So it all, I started putting all the pieces together, and people tried to tell me, some hunter built. I'm thinking, the only thing is about that is that you have a few miles, and there's no fallen trees. But when the fire had burned, I noticed that the encampment was built with a couple burnt pieces of logs from the fire from many years ago. We're talking like 20 years ago, and so you have to think, this thing has multiple 20-foot-long tall logs. These are whole trees at it. And a lot of time and a lot of effort was spent building it, and obviously somebody lived in it, because if you were just, using it to stay out of the elements, you would actually build it with less openings. But I think the openings were facing towards like where hikers might be below there's a trail miles below, but it would be facing any direction you'd expect humans to come. And then you had the tree banging system, the mutilation. So I figured that was a Bigfoot encampment. People will argue with me. They'll tell me that me and my son built it. And I'm just thinking, the only logs that you find are at the bottom of the canyon where all the forest fire occurred. And so, the firemen chopped them all to kind of stop the fire. They would go in there and they just chop a bunch of trees down so it doesn't spread, because Kings Canyon, you can go up from Kings Canyon right up into Lake Tahoe on foot.
Right.
And it starts off in Carson City. So we had found the shelter miles above the city, but there was just a lot of things that didn't add up. It's like, what kind of human being would carry log after log through this wilderness? We had trouble, traversing this wilderness. We had to cross the creek multiple times. We had to climb over tree logs. We had to climb through brush higher than us. And this thing was perfectly built in the middle of no man's land. And so, you have to question those type of things, and you have to keep an open mind. And if people think that Bigfoot doesn't build shelters to live in, they're dead wrong. This is a creature that lives in caves, builds its own shelters. It's intelligent enough because it has to survive. And when your species numbers are low, you'll do whatever it takes to survive.
Right.
Humans are its greatest threat. So what it looked like to me is that when it's an area that seems to be protected by Lake Tahoe's Ferris winter, and it looked like something lived in here during the winter months. And so it's on our website, the Bigfoot Encampment, and when I put it on Mysterious Universe, I had the owner put it as an article, he put it in a thread. We had like 500 people were making fun of me and bashing me, and I still held my ground because we had it analyzed, by a forensic investigator on our team, and we really looked into it. And when you have trees used as posts, and they're 7-8 inches slammed into the ground, and this thing is built weighing thousands of pounds probably when you count all the logs that they stacked it up. They stacked each log around the tree and locked them all in place. You have to, keep an open mind and say, what could have broke this deer bone? What could have been powerful enough to take this rock so hard and beat the crap out of this log on the ground and just beat it over and over, making hundreds of nicks on it? And, I tried to take the rock and beat the log, and I thought, man, whoever was beating this log probably put 150 pounds per square inch of pressure to make those chips and those indentations within the log itself. So, people don't look at the whole picture. They just see the shelter, but they got to understand that there are forensic finds around the whole shelter as if something was living like a Neanderthal. It was living like a caveman there. You could tell whatever was here was very primitive. It wasn't human that built it. It wasn't a human that sucked that bone marrow out. It had to be a Bigfoot-like creature, probably a male, a female, and usually a young child. Well, people refer to them as adolescents or juveniles, but it had to be they will do whatever they can to take care of their own. And on occasion, the younger Sasquatch will sometimes be curious and go check out humans or go through someone's camp and take some twine or something that they can play with. And I don't think people realize that these are creatures that are intelligent. They're survivors. They've been around for thousands of years. And too many credible sightings of the Sierras is this area of the Sierras. I don't know if you're familiar, but El Dorado Forest, Carson Iceberg Wilderness. If you've ever looked at a Bigfoot sightings map, all around the western end of Tahoe, all the way up into Carson City and all along the Sierra Nevadas in the state of Nevada, it is covered, dot. Every dot touches, because there's been thousands of sightings and vocalizations and strange prints found. And hikers will email me and they'll be like, Rick, I found this print out here and that print. But these are not paranormal groups. These are just hikers coming across this type of thing, and they'll give me tips, and sometimes I'll go check it out myself, and it turns out that they're right. There is something lurking in that area. And so I try to do my investigations pretty evenly. I might in one day hit a wilderness location for Bigfoot with the aspiration that I'll come across some UFOs, and I'll mix it up and look for ghosts and things, and sometimes I get more than I bargained for. My kid and I, in October, want to do something special for our viewers because we know that since we've been we've always started a lot of our hikes that are on our site. We started from the bottom of the Sierra Nevadas and went over the Tahoe Rim, there's a lot of beautiful hikes. And if you leave there's trails that go up from, these valleys. They'll go between canyons and up to Lake Tahoe. But if you leave that trail, it gets stranger and stranger. And so for October, I wanted to do a little Bigfoot type of investigation. And my son and I, we started in Carson City, and we went all the way up into the mountains where we came across ruins of a sawmill, which we did a ghost investigation of it. There's also an old Flume Trail house, or what it is that these houses were built up there to maintain the dam, to maintain the log flumes, because the log flumes would go 12 or 25 miles to Virginia City, and then they would use the wood in the Comstock mining and to build Carson City. We went all the way up to the Tahoe Rim. We even left the trail where we found these really strange tracks. Don't know what it was, but they just kept going for about 10 feet, 12 feet, and then they vanished. And I told my son, I said, I hope we don't come across that thing at night because we're not getting out of here till night. And, of course, we went up to the Hobart Reservoir. We did a ghostly investigation of the Red House, which is from the 1800s, and a blast of water had hit the house, killed the wives of the caretakers in there. And I felt really watched back there. On our way back during sunset, I left the house, I went past the reservoir, I started hiking, seen Reno from up on the mountain, seen Carson City all lit up at night, and all of a sudden, I look up to my right, and there's something, I don't know, it had to be 7, 8 feet tall. It was very high off the ground, and its eyes were just piercing back at me. I held the flashlight to its eyes, and it was just staring at me and breaking brush, and brush was just, branches were snapping like you could tell it had weight to it, and I told my son, I said, it's probably just an animal, but I said to him, we need to be careful. This thing's 20 feet away, and it's peering behind a tree at me, and it's tall. And so I have to take that into consideration. Maybe this is a Sasquatch-like creature. And, it's important when you're out there investigating, it's not just the eyes. It's the smells, it's what you hear. Those are important things. And so my son, we get to this plateau, and I'm busy trying to take photos of Reno at night, and my son practically, has a heart attack on the spot. He's just, frozen in terror. And all of a sudden I hear this big thing just leap off the plateau. It leaps right off the cliff. And then it just smacks down into a bunch of brush and just runs off. And I couldn't make out what it was. But my son was his heart was beating when we got home, and he's usually not scared of much, but his heart was beating. I said, what? You going to talk about it with me? What's the problem? I said, what did you see up there? Because I know what I see. And he said that he seen, it was this creature on all fours. It was black, very dark. It's like it had no eyes. I think that it had eyes, but I think it had closed its eyes because originally I had shined my light up at this thing. And didn't think too much over, except, hey, that's something quite tall against the tree staring back at me. But he claimed it was large and black, and I've heard of cases, and I've had a friend one time witness a Bigfoot running on all fours, and I think that's what he had witnessed. I think that it was a Bigfoot, and it was peeling out of there on all fours, and it leaped off the plateau. They're very good, they're primates, so they're good at climbing, leaping, falling, rolling. They're just, they're built for the outdoors. Their intestines are longer, so they can eat the gooseberries. They can eat the foliage found throughout the Sierras. I've been in the Sierras, and people don't even realize it. There are vineyards. There are orchards. There are meadows of berries. There's deer everywhere. I can get up close to the wildlife. Sometimes I can get 20 feet, 10 feet from a deer if I walk slow to it. These creatures are out there, and there's a lot of water, which provides a substance to sustain a Bigfoot-like creature. So he's seen this thing. I seen it prior on the hike staring at us, and it followed us. You could hear this thing following us. And when we got to the open area where there was no tree cover, it's just an open plateau. This thing comes peeling through there and just jumps off. It's like, whoa. And I could hear it. My back was turned, but my son got a face-to-face encounter. And he's pretty good about the whole Bigfoot thing. He's always looking for tracks. We have certain areas that we do that at. When we're in the Sierras, we always look for the mud and the muck and the sand or the snow, or we'll go up to certain hidden lakes where we know we could look for different animal tracks and possibly find a Sasquatch track of maybe one of these creatures drinking on the lake, which was the case back. I camped at Burnside Lake, and I think it was September, October. But the first time I went up, I found a track of possibly a 7 to 9 footer. I had another cryptozoologist write me. He says, nice video. He goes, that looks like about a 7, maybe 8 footer, 9 footer. But he says, nice track. I said, thanks, I'm going back. Well, we camped there, and our first day was I heard these vocalizations at this peak. So my son and I, we rock climb. There's no trails. We're pushing through brush, pushing through the woods. We rock climbed to this peak. We hear vocalizations. We don't know where they're coming from. Didn't think nothing of it, but on my way up, I seen some tall black creature move between the trees. It was bipedal, and it ran between the trees. We even found some encampment up in the woods, and it was like all kinds of rusty parts, and like the campground is a couple miles from there, and to me, I would observe that whatever was living there was just collecting anything, junk, springs off cars, a lug nut, and that's what primates do. But near that area, I seen something, and then the next night, I'll do vocalizations. Well, I let out a vocalization, and about an hour later, I told Tammy, I said, you watch that if they're out there, they will vocalize back. And an hour, maybe 40 minutes later, we heard these very spooky vocalizations, like bone chilling, and you know, she's a skeptic, so she's like, oh, what was that? There's no way that's Bigfoot, that's coyotes. I said, when have you ever come across coyotes in the high Sierras in this region? You don't. And I said, it's not coyotes, it was a sound I heard similar is to where a Bigfoot will take down a deer or an animal when it hunts at night, and that animal is just mortified as this thing's, you know, I could hear two of them vocalizing to each other, and then a third sound, which was obviously the prey or probably a deer that this thing probably pounced and ripped apart, and you could hear it. And so I wanted to call back, and she was like, no. I said, well, if you don't believe it's Bigfoot, why can't I call back? And she just couldn't give me an answer. And, you know, later down the road, about a day or two later, she says, you know, those vocalizations really were strange. And my son, when we camp, he likes to get up 6 in the morning. And he had gotten up the same, like, in the morning, just like 6 hours prior, I heard the vocalizations, and seeing two creatures drinking on the lake shore. And they had a rock in their hand, and they kept banging and banging against a tree, and he kept hearing it. So he picked up a rock and started tree banging. He said they both looked up at him, and when they realized he was human, they booked. So it's just, it's amazing what I come across in my journeys. I want to camp more. Last year I only got to go a couple times. I did a lot more long distance hikes instead. But when you camp at a place and you stay 3-4 days, you start to realize if you're the only one back there, you will start to pick up that you're going to draw in their curiosity. They're going to start coming around at night. If you go out there before sunup, you might notice one across the lake. But we found Bigfoot tracks. We found a mutilation. We heard vocalizations. We had 2 sightings back there, and then almost a year prior to that, I found the print in the snow, and because it was a mild winter. It's been a mild winter in the Sierras for the last 3 years, so there are accessible areas where you might get a patch of snow or two, where it's not too dangerous. You're not going to freeze to death, but you have patches where you can actually track this thing. And every time I find its track, every single time, it's usually 1, 2, 3 tracks, and they just vanish, which is why I believe there might be a UFO connection to this, because I think that maybe they're crossing the trail, and all of a sudden they're maybe beamed up, which is very feasible technology for a UFO. You can disassemble atoms, and you can put them together again. And as long as you have the biological imprint of any animal or human, it is very plausible to say that this technology with aliens could exist. And that's why I'll find 5, 6 tracks, and then they disappear. It's not that they disappear. Maybe they go up to the stars. Maybe they're just here to survey humans.
Possibly.
I don't know.
Well, hey, we're getting close to the end of the show. What's the best way people can actually reach you and look more at your videos as well?
Okay, no problem. If you want to check out my video, Paranormal Ghost Society.org. And ghost is not with an S, it's just ghostsociety.org. You can check out my YouTube at www.youtube.com/AngelOfThyNight, THYNIGHT. You can look up our Kickin' community, too, on Google+. We're also on Facebook. Just type in Paranormal and Ghost Society on either one. Or you can just type in Google Lord Rick, and I'm sure there'll be probably about 1 million hyperlinks. But
right, and I'm also going to, on our page, you can go on there, and I will be posting all of those links as well. So if you didn't get a chance to catch those, we'll have them there. Make sure to check them out. Go and visit his site. He's got all kinds of information on his site. Great place for information and to see some great pictures. Make sure to follow him on Google Plus and follow him on Facebook, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much, Rick, for being on the show.
Awesome.
Thanks
for having me.
Thanks, Hawk.
You're very
awesome,
welcome.
Right. Good night, all.
Thanks for talking so much tonight, Renee. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
no problem. Since we started.
No, it's good. It's been a good show. I appreciate it.
It absolutely has. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much for joining us. Got a great show next week as well, so make sure to check us out. Make sure you check out that page and like us on Facebook. Good night, everyone. Good night, Renee.
Good night.
Rick.
Peace.